OSB's up. Moisture barrier's down. Put blocking along this wall, that way the subfloor has something to nail to. Foundation inspection, or framing and foundation inspection passed. Put blocking in here. That's what this is, just to keep critters from coming in. Now what we're getting ready to do is staple insulation in here, and then we will put some subfloor glue down and nail the subfloor in. We'll be ready for the next step. So let me get this one going. That's it. There's flaps on the insulation. Overlap them on the stud and staple them, and just overlap your seams. I've seen this insulation mounted both ways. You're supposed to put wires in here to keep this up, but like we talked about originally, nobody can get underneath that floor. Not me anyway. We're going to staple it in, and then we'll run a bead of subfloor glue right down this seam. Each one of these staple seams will get a big thick glob of subfloor glue. We'll lay the board down and nail it in, and that will be it. Now I'll get the subfloor glue, basically route every stud with glue, and we'll nail it in. Alright, so the subfloor is in. I had to do that a lot different than I normally do. The facing, which is the paper side of the insulation, has to be against the surface of the floor. Or if you're putting it in an attic, it's got to be against the ceiling. If you're putting it in a floor, it's got to be against the subfloor. And then the insulation goes down. I could have pushed some wires up underneath it, but with me pushing down on it, they would have probably just popped out. So this is kind of a one-off insulation. I did nail every 6 inches. I wasn't able to put subfloor glue down, which I always do on these. I usually glue them to the rafters, but since the insulation was on top of the rafters, I would just be gluing the subfloor to the insulation, which is not helping. So what I'm going to do is come back and screw this decking down, because I do not want this moving at all. This is getting a special ornate tile put on top of it, and I've got to have it flush with inside. So probably what I'll end up doing is putting another layer of subfloor down and hardy backer to make the floor match. And when I put the next layer of subfloor down, I will glue it to this. And since I'm screwing this down, that should take care of the issue. So one-off problems. Normally I would have glued this down, then came underneath and put the insulation in. But as you could see, this back corner over here, there probably isn't, maybe 6 inches from the bottom of the rafters to the dirt. So there's just one of those issues you run into. That's normally how you would do it. I just have to do this one a little differently. So it's good and solid. Like I said, I'm going to screw it in as well, and then I will put another layer of subfloor. If you look right here, I've got to match with what's inside the house. The tile is going to give me about 1 inch between the mortar and the tile. The hardy board is going to give me another 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So I probably still have enough room in order to match the hardwood that's inside the house to put another layer of subfloor. And that may get us right up pretty close to where we need to be, to where I won't have to buy much of a transition. So now I'm going to finish demoing all this, which is just ripping this off. And then I did have to do some special deals over here. You didn't get to see this, but since this is a load bearing, well, it's not load, bearing. Load bearing for the header. I wanted to make sure that the bottom plate here was on top of the brick, and in order to get everything flush before, it wasn't on the rafter up here and it wasn't on directly on the brick. So when I cut this 2x4, this side, which is the hinge side, needs to be setting on something solid. So I moved the whole wall that way. When I did that, that caused an issue here, which I can still fix. Basically what I'm gonna have to do is cut this, take this piece out, and I'll just trim this window out with a smaller side section. But these are the issues you run into. You want to make sure it's square. I wanted to make sure that I could screw it in to the rafter up top, and it had to be setting on that plate that I built the foundation for. So everything had to move this direction, which caused some issues here, but nothing I can't fix, just one-off issues.